Welcome into the Diamond Vols Podcast on GoVols247.com. I am Ben McKee, and I'm joined by Will Heflin and Wes Rucker on this edition of the podcast. Have a positive edition of the podcast coming your way. We drove the podcast into the Tennessee River on Monday, and we momentarily drowned, but the Knoxville Fire Department and everybody involved has pulled us out, and we have new life. We're coming at you from a glass half full approach. I know Chris Burke is in the second segment. Burke was kind enough to join us. I sat down with him early this Wednesday morning, coming off of Tennessee's 12-1 win over Indiana State on Tuesday night, to get his thoughts on the current state of the Vols, the SEC team that he trusts the most right now, what he would tell Dean Curley if those two sat down and spoke right now. Gave us a scout of Vanderbilt, talked about the key matchups for Tennessee this weekend. So that was a fun 20-25-minute conversation with Berkey that will be during the second segment of this podcast. In the first segment, I'm with Will and Wes, as always, and here to also give our thoughts on the Tennessee-Vanderbilt series and discuss a couple different storylines heading into the weekend. A big rivalry series for Tennessee. A lot to discuss coming off of the 12-1 win over Indiana State. Wes, Will, I hope y'all are doing well. Wes, we'll start with you. You were in the ballpark last night. What was your biggest takeaway from Tennessee's win over Indiana State?
I mean, sometimes it's just good to get, everyone knows I'm vibes based, and it just felt like vibes were back sort of where they need to be. Now, Indiana State is a better name right now than it is a team, because that team's been very good the past couple of years, but their coaching staff went somewhere else. They got a new coaching staff in there. They're scuffling a little bit. So they're not great. Couple familiar names from the past couple of years, but that's a team Tennessee should be taking care of. But I mean, that there's no guarantees there, right? And Tennessee went out there and took care of business. Baseball is a hard game, and it's always going to be a hard game. But when you throw strikes and mostly make the plays you're supposed to make, it gets a little easier. And they just, they went about their business. Indiana State had a couple guys with decent stuff, and they hit, I think, 5 home runs, and, took care of business and got some guys out there, 7 innings, drama free. It looked pretty good, I thought.
Yeah, I agree. And when I think of Indiana State, I mean, their coaching staff went to USF, the Bulls, took that job, which is understandable.
They're doing
understandable to want to go from Indiana to Tampa and, recruit in that area and probably have a few more resources. But they were really good before they left. And the guy I think of first was Spencer, who was Texas Friday guy, came from Indiana State, big lefty. And he was probably the most, I don't know, maybe it's just because we're on this side of the SEC on the eastern side, but like the most underrated pitcher in the league. Like, he was having a phenomenal year, right up there with your Doyles and Andersons and Jamie Arnolds in terms of just premier left-handed pitching category. And not a lot of people talk to him. Maybe they were starting to, and then he got hurt. He's out for the season. But anyways, that's beside the point. Tennessee, definitely a mouthwash rinse type win. But I'm not really as much of a vibes based guy, Wes, but I do. It's hard to point at anything else right now. And when everything seems to kind of be going wrong, like, that's the first thing that you can fix, right? All the technical stuff, some of that gets cleared up when you're just playing in a better environment. And then when the vibes are good,
so you are vibes based, is what you're saying.
Yeah, but maybe I just need a better word. I don't know. It makes me feel like super Gen whatever I am. What am I? Gen X, which I am, but
Gen X,
I try to.
That'd be Gen Z, maybe.
I might be Gen Z. I try to,
because Gen X is older than me. I'm technically, or I'm like I'm like on that line almost. So there's no way you are.
Well, people my age would probably spend 2 days with me and be like, dude, you're a boomer. But anyways,
I'm the oldest millennial you can be, technically. Like, the oldest millennial. If I was like 1 or 2 years older, I could not be.
Much like Tennessee, I am positive. I've washed out the negative podcast from earlier in the week, so I'm excited to be with you guys. I'm doing very well, and I'm excited to preview Vanderbilt. My biggest takeaway is the 5 homers. The power is back. I know it's midweek arms, but to see the ball go over the wall for some of our big bashers, Keelan, Fisher specifically, need those guys to carry that over into the weekend big time. And you guys know that while, yes, it's a midweek, I still find value in those, and very good win.
There are baseball takeaways that I have, but just to stick with the overall theme of the overall feel around the team, I thought that was really important last night for them to have a refreshed outlook on the season. There were several things that took place in between the series loss to Auburn and first pitch against Indiana State, even with that being 48 hours or less, somewhere around that time frame. From my understanding, there were several come to Jesus meetings on Monday. There were players who stepped up and not really gave just a rah-rah speech, but sent some text messages in the team group chat, like Hunter Ensley, Dalton Bargo sent some nice texts to the team, just trying to be uplifting. And that's, again, what the gist of the Monday podcast was, at least from my standpoint, Wes, was, again, for the millionth time, not that things are in a really, really bad spot, because you hear, like, okay, the leadership needs to improve, the chemistry needs to improve. And for our Tennessee football fans, which I assume is just about everybody listening, there's that battered Vol fan syndrome that creeps in, and you think back to Butch Jones and all the drama during that era, and there's so many other examples as well, from Dooley, from Pruitt, and you think back to like those examples when you get concerned, or you hear that buzzword about chemistry and leadership. It's not that it was in a bad place. It's just that it needs to take a step forward in order for the team's play to take a step forward. And I think with the come to Jesus meetings that took place, and text messages from the bona fide leaders on the team, it was clear. And Gavin Keelan talked about this in his post-game interview, and I heard it from others as well behind the scenes, that there was just a refreshed outlook, and everybody had just taken a deep breath and exhaled and just felt better coming to the ballpark. And it's going to pay off against Indiana State. We'll see how it pays off against Vanderbilt. You hope that carries into the weekend against better competition. But like Will said, there's still value in midweek games. There's a lot of value in midweek games. Those are your get-right games, and Tennessee desperately needed one from a just purely playing the game of baseball standpoint, and also a mental standpoint. And I think that going into this series, based off of how the month of April went, I think Tennessee is going to be in as good of a spot mentally as they have been in a while.
Yeah, I think that, when we talk about the things Tennessee needs to improve, right, we're talking about, give or take a half dozen things that could improve, in terms of things that you really think maybe possibly could improve if they would just do it. And Tennessee doesn't have to fix all of those things to like win a championship. It just needs to, it absolutely has to improve like half of them or a few of them. There's a couple things that if you do them by themselves, they're not that bad, but when you put all of them together, that's when you have problems. So when you're looking at a situation like that, I think you have to get back to like the very root of it. You have to get to the very first thing you can control. And this is something I think Stone Lawless talked about this early in the season. There's one thing that you can control every single day, and that's your attitude. And that is something that you come to the park every day and you're in a good mood and you want to fight with your teammates. Not fight with them, but fight with them against opposition, right? You want to go out there and win, and you want to be in a good mood about it. You want to be encouraging. You want to be confident. These are the things you can control. Like after that, man, there might be a hole in your swing right now, right? Like you might not have the feel of your breaking ball right now. You might be, you might have a little bit of leg soreness, so you don't have quite the same pop either at the plate or on the mound. Those are things that just they happen, right? But you don't have to show that. All you have to do is go out there and go forward, because this is the time of year where, I mean, fake it until you make it right now. That's what time of year it is. You got a couple weeks left in the regular season. That's all you have. Like, look to your left, look to your right. That's who you got with you. Go. And then after the season, then you can do kind of the postmortem and sort it out and say, okay, this is what's got to fix. But right now, you just got to go compete like a maniac. That's what you have to do. Like, survive right now and just go out there every day and be in a good mood. Like, there's no reason to be sulking in that dugout, man. Like, look at Gavin Keelan. What'd he say? Like, this team's 38-11. Like, I've never been on a team that's had a good record like that. Like, he hasn't. So, I mean, dude, you have enough. Do you have the best roster in the country? Probably not, but you're close. Go out there and compete.
Yeah, it's definitely a top 5 roster, arguably top 3.
Yeah.
I think sometimes when things are the most frustrating, you've got to make the solution the most simple, and competing like a maniac is about as simple as you can make it. It's like, hey, it does not matter which foot you put forward first when you're fielding a ground ball. It doesn't matter, your bat path or launch angle, all that stuff. They've played so long and they're so talented and gifted. When you just compete like a maniac, the good stuff happens. And, for somebody like Nate Snead, we've talked about a lot on here lately.
Mm-hmm.
He is an absolute dog when he's right. For him, it just can't be any more simple. Like, let it go. Let it be what it is. And I think, he definitely feels the weight of the bullpen right now. He feels like it's on his shoulders more than everybody else. And that's fine.
Let me ask you a question on Snead real quick, Heflin, with his stuff. Do you think that in terms of what's getting him in trouble, do you think it's simply teams know that his fastball is flat and maybe there's not a secondary pitch to combat that, or is it command issues? What do you chalk it up to be?
Yeah, I don't really think it's either of those things, because I've never seen Snead and been like, his fastball's flat. I mean, he's kind of got a little bit of run, especially when his arm slot's a little bit lower. Now, when he's going 4-seam up in the zone, he's trying to backspin the thing. And so, yeah, flat is the word, but
it doesn't spin a lot. The numbers on it aren't great.
It's not, it's not a high spin 4-seam. So he's got to use that off of his breaking ball. I think breaking ball is the biggest thing for Snead right now. He needs to rip the crap out of that thing. And, I don't know if he's guiding it or if he just doesn't have a feel for it right now, like you said, Wes, but that's a him and Frank thing, to where, when Snead is Snead, he's locating that, getting swings and misses on that. And then the 97 plays like it should. Right. And so right now it's just not playing like it should. But again, the difference between him getting hammered and him being untouchable is so small. Like, it is literally a couple inches further towards the corner of the plate on the breaking ball, or, looks like it's in the zone for a split second longer on those 2-strike ones to get the chase, and not allow a hitter to lay off of it. And then maybe him and Frank come together and decide they need to switch up their sequencing. Like, maybe teams have a good scouting report on him, and they're just, guessing right. Because when you throw 97, unless you're, Joey Votto or Todd Helton, you're guessing sometimes, especially, when you're down on the count. Like, you can't just get up there and be like, all right, I'm just going to react. Like, no, that ain't happening. This stuff is too good. So guys are guessing right on him, which I think he and Frank can get that figured out, and keep guys a little bit more off balance.
I think really quickly on that, I think he is struggling with conviction right now because he has spiked a lot of those breaking balls. And they have been costly. And he's the kind of guy who knows that, right? There's some guys who go out there and don't think as much. And oftentimes those are the very best players. But sometimes when guys think too much, it can be a good thing. And sometimes it can be a bad thing. And I think you have to throw pitches with conviction. I know Tony says that word a lot, but it's true. Like, you have to mean it when you throw it, or you're not going to have as much success. And I think with those runners on third and those spiked breaking balls that he's had, letting guys come home or sailing it, I think that gets up here, and I think that makes you guide the ball a little bit. And I think that's where you get in trouble, and that's where he's got to have the feel of that breaking ball, because if he does, he can rip that thing where he wants it. And then, to Will's point, 97, and he can still throw 98, 100. He can still tick it up there when he's really dialed in and really juiced up. But I mean, he's just, it starts for me, the entire thing does, with throwing that cutter slider with just a lot more conviction.
Heflin, I cut you off there as you were wrapping up your thoughts on big picture stuff. So after I throw this at you, feel free to pick up if there's anything that you really wanted to add as well. In terms of actual baseball takeaway, aside from the mental aspect of this team, Tuesday night against Indiana State, and I think this speaks to the team's mindset, is how aggressive they were at the plate. From the jump, they were aggressive. It was, and you saw the tweaks with the lineup, right? Fisher hit second, Inslee's up to third, Bargo fourth, Curley fifth. That's probably something we need to discuss after this. But there was clearly a different approach, in my opinion. And I think it was one that was discussed within the walls of the program. And I thought they executed it well, because over the weekend, it just kind of felt like they were being too selective, trying to work the count, which there's nothing wrong with that. Those are all good things to do as a hitter, of course, but it feels like this Tennessee offense is at its best when it's on the hunt, when it's being aggressive, and that's when you see the home runs follow. And oftentimes the best pitches you are going to get to hit are early in the count. So I thought that was a needed change philosophically going into last night's game, and I thought the guys did a really good job of adjusting their approach and attacking, and it paid off in a big way.
100%. And the one caveat I'll give on that is, if they keep that same approach into the weekend, we will see them swing at some balls. We're like, dang, how are you swinging at that? Me personally, I can live with that. I would much rather not miss the early good ones. And if they do find themselves further down in counts, some of the strikeouts won't be looking, they'll be chasing. And that is A-okay with me, because what you see on the flip side is when they don't miss those early in the count, or they get ahead in the count, and are on the hunt, like you said, Ben, to coin the phrase that's used in the program all the time, that's when you get the damage. And so, it's a real fine line between trying to put together a good AB, being selective. And obviously the zone played a role last weekend. But it just looked like they had gotten a little too focused on just trying to work an at bat and be, productive, rather than just, I'm going up there to backspin the thing. And so we saw that adjustment. I hope it carries over into the weekend, because, it's pitcher dependent too. Like, if Vandy brings in a guy who's walking a guy and a half per inning, then don't go up there and hack, be a little bit more selective. But like Friday guy, JD Thompson, is going to throw strikes. Outside of the one outing, I think it was Oklahoma, he was just completely off. Unless you can identify very early, like, hey, this guy's not filling it up, get in there and get your swing off. Don't get, the fewer 2-strike counts we get, the better. And the other caveat on that too is you're going to have some quick innings. You may hit 3 rockets right at guys, and he gets out of there in 8 pitches. That's the cost of doing business. But the crooked number comes from when Tennessee is aggressive and does damage. And so there's an upside and downside to every offensive approach, but I think they're just overall better when they're up there trying to do damage, and you can live with the shortcomings on that side versus the shortcomings on, hey, yeah, you got to 3-2 a couple times in this inning, but you didn't get anybody on base and you didn't hit anything hard.
And they're going to have to make sure that they do a good job of being aggressive, but not being reckless, because something that Burke points out in the second segment when giving the scouting report on Vanderbilt is their bullpen. What Burke said is that it's different than Vanderbilt bullpens of the past that was built off of velocity. This Vanderbilt bullpen throws a lot of breaking stuff and secondary pitches. So that can, if you're being reckless instead of aggressive, that can make you look silly in a hurry. So that they need to.
That's what I was saying. Is like I'm okay with a little bit of that.
Yes, but there's a line there though, because you don't
Yeah.
want to totally lose yourself you don't want to swing the pendulum too far, Wes.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a really fine line there, but I think if you were to ask, Will, if you were to ask a majority of guys who have pitched, at a pretty darn high level, I think they would tell you what's the best pitch in baseball. Strike one, because the numbers of like the percentages, the way they shift toward the pitcher on 0-1, it's noticeable. Like it's a lot different. It's the difference in like you swing at the first pitch or you're down 0-1 or you're up 1-0. Those are like three very different numbers. And if you get behind 0-1 and you live 0-1 as a pitcher, you're probably going to be really good. And as a hitter, you're probably going to have tough numbers, unless you're like a Todd Helton who was born with 2 strikes and didn't care. He started at bats with 2 strikes. Guys like that are, they're Hall of Famers for a reason. Excuse me. But I think I like, especially when you are struggling a little bit, I like being aggressive, because I think this is not just in baseball. I think it's in all sports. I am much more willing to forgive like mistakes on the front foot. Like, I grew up Catholic, right? There's sins of omission and sins of commission, right? If you're out there doing something and you do something wrong, okay. But if you just sit there and let it happen, that's different. Like, go out there and be on the front foot, have the initiative, go out there and attack. And if you are attacking and you lose, well, you were punching, man. Like that's where I think it's dependent. Like Andrew Fisher can work a count all day. That's fine. But not everybody can do that. Somebody else gets down 0-2. Peebles can get back into it. Curley, when he's at his best, can get back into it. And sometimes if a pitcher knows that he can groove that fastball in there for strike one and you're not going to hack at it, you can't do that. Like you're playing right into what they want. So yeah, I mean, it's very dependent on the strike zone. It's very dependent on what the guy's throwing, but I like being aggressive.
My other 2 takeaways, Wes, from the win over Indiana State was the Reese Chapman home run, which one of you mentioned earlier. What you hope is that can get him going again, because in order for Tennessee to reach its full potential, you need Reese Chapman to live up to his potential this season. And it's been a real struggle for him the last couple of weeks. Tony Vitello talked after the game that for him, it's a matter of trying to do too much at the plate, and that gets him in trouble. So he felt like it was good to see him kind of stay relaxed in the box and not have that try hard. It's not, he doesn't mean it in a negative way, but just Reese's baseball is much like any sport. Like when you try too hard, that's you honestly get yourself in trouble. It is possible to try too hard and that lead to mistakes. So
Ben,
go ahead.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Did Kavaris have a little slump about this time last year?
A little bit
as well.
You would be correct.
I think similar timing there.
Yeah.
Just, which could be a good omen for Reese.
And that's part of baseball. Like it was cool to hear Burke talk about slumps in baseball. I again, like I said earlier, I asked him, hey, if you were on the phone with Dean Curley or in Knoxville and got a chance to sit down with him, what would you say to him? And his thing is like, hey, like it's baseball. Slumps happen. Don't be embarrassed about it, because everybody goes through it. The sport's best go through slumps, and you just kind of got to embrace it. Don't be embarrassed about it, and find a way to work yourself out of it. And I think that applies to Dean Curley. I think it applies to Reese Chapman. I think it applies to Nate Snead. Like you just got to, as frustrated as you are, you need to be even more determined to dig yourself out of it. So my point in bringing that up, Will, is like I think we forget, and Berkey makes his point, is because these guys are playing 60 games and it's a 30-game conference slate, and Major League Baseball plays 162 games. Like we forget in college, like slumps are a part of baseball, right? Like they happen. Everybody goes through them. Gavin Keelan was not that good this past weekend at the plate. So it's just a part of the sport. But good news, or good to see that Chapman home run, Wes. And then the other thing, Chris Newsom's coming. He is, and he might be here. Like
He's not knocking on the door. He's running through it.
yeah, I mean, and he can play a multitude of positions. You love the kid's mindset. His swing looks good.
He doesn't think too much.
No, he doesn't. You had another Bargo error last night. A throwing error. He made a nice play on the ball, if I remember correctly, but then just kind of yanked the throw. I tend to believe that his two errors of late, or his couple of errors of late at third, is more of a blip on the radar than.
I'm not worried about it.
I'm not either. But with that being said, I wonder if you put Bargo back out in left, and instead of Manny Marin at third, you put Chris Newsom at third. So that's kind of a minor talking point. But the point in mentioning that is like Newsom can play third, he can play left. They did sub out Chapman midway through game 3 for him. He looks good. He's got that energy that the team needs. Like it. I know we talk about Levi Clark and some others, but I want Levi in the lineup. I thought he looked good at the plate over the weekend, but I think Newstrom is like 1B with Mr. Clark, who is 1A at the moment in terms of freshmen I want in the game.
Yeah, and I think it's nobody. Reese Chapman is the kind of kid that you don't ever feel good about criticizing because everyone loves Reese Chapman. You know, I mean, he's a good dude, man. He's a good program guy too. He's been there, doesn't complain, goes about his business every day, was a big time prospect who went through a little bit of a rut and he fought through it, and then he earned a starting spot. And, you know, and I know fans can't always get into the park in time to watch BP because of like when the gates open and things like that. But if you've ever watched Reese Chapman take BP, you can get like mesmerized by it. It's a beautiful, effortless swing, and the ball just carries. I mean, there's a reason why he was the prospect that he is, because his natural smooth swing has a lot of power in it to all fields. And the problem is he thinks too much, and then he tries too hard. And that's always been the thing. He's just got to calm down and play the game. And when he does, good things happen. But I did reach a point, and I'm still just in all candor, like this is May. It's time to go. And if you're not contributing, then you might have to have someone else play in your spot. And that's just kind of, it's not personal, it's business. You're trying to win a championship. So Reese Chapman needs to get going, because I don't think the length of the chain there is limitless. I think he's got to start hitting. And I don't think it's the same with Curly, because I think Curly's had more time where he's been like a really good player. So I don't think it's different in that situation, and fans might not like that, but I think it's the truth, and I agree with it. Chapman's got to start swinging, because this Newstrom kid, man, he's coming. And I don't think you take Levi Clark out of the lineup. I don't think he'd be the one to go. So, you know, add another righty bat into the mix. I mean, it's there. It's a possibility. Because I think
the funny part for me is like I want more Jay Abernathy too, because I think like
he had line drives. All he does is hit line drives.
He does. I mean, he would have had a triple with ease last night if that first baseman doesn't make a great diving stop. Mm-hmm. He had the single in game 1 against Auburn, pinch hit single off the bench right up the middle that people forget about because Keelan grounded into a double play on the next pitch and they lose 6-2 or whatever the score was. So, Will, there's a lot of freshmen that deserve to play right now. I said earlier that Newstrom could play third over Manny, but I don't want to take Manny out either. It's just part of it, right? Tony made the comment last weekend, like we can't write a 12-team lineup. We're just going to have to do what we think is best and go from there.
I think when they play in a big field, you could see Abernathy in left some. Like if in the postseason they get to one of those big yards, I think you could see him out in left.
Yeah, That's definitely an idea. I mean, all 4 of those freshmen, it's so tough to keep them off the field right now. So if we were writing the lineup card, we'd all be in the same camp as Tony. It's like you can't write them all in. So you take into account what you need based on the pitcher that day and, who's playing the best, who had the best practice, who carried themselves the best. I mean, it's got to be a merit-based system, and it is, but it's just, you're so excited about all 4 of them. You'd love them to be in there every day, and you'd see them develop to their full potential, like closer to what their full potential is the longer we get into this thing. But I'm in the same camp as you, Ben. Like, it's so hard for me to not have Jay somewhere on this team, because he just provides something so different
that they don't have.
Exactly. And Newstrom runs way better than anybody, realizes as well. Like, that dude can absolutely roll. He just doesn't get
5 fools.
He doesn't get the obviousness of it like Jay does, because he hasn't been that designated. He's probably a split second slower than Jay, maybe. I don't have their 60 times in front of me, but both of those dudes are so athletic. And Newstrom's more power in the back, Jay a little bit more contact. And they can both go get it in the outfield. So it's tough. But the reason I brought up Kavaris about Reese is because their season has gone so similar to each other. And Reese is literally just one big weekend away from kind of, being right back to where he was a month ago. And, he's a guy that you do one up in the postseason, because we're talking about being aggressive. That's one thing about Reese Chapman. He's going to get that damn swing off.
Yeah.
He's not going to get cheated. And I can live with that. You know what I mean? Like, Bargo is not who I'm talking to when I'm talking about swinging early and get your swing off. As a good batter in between Bargo, Chapman, Fisher, and Peebles, really. I think that's why Peebles has come on as of late, is because he's done taking pitches. He's up there.
You'd like to see Curley do it.
I would love to see Dean Curley get his swing off.
I mean, even last night, we're talking about the change in approach. It's Curley's hitting 5th last night. The first 4 guys jump on early pitches in the count, and then Dean came up with his methodical approach once again.
No doubt. And even Inslee at times too, because Inslee, when there's runners in scoring position, 2 out, something like that, he's going to hit his line drive over second base. That's just what he's going to do. But Inslee can get you to 15 homers, likely. I mean, sometimes I want to see Inslee kind of elevate to that pull side a little bit more often. But, Ben, you touched on it earlier. There's a fine line there. You start going up there G-hacking all the time, and next thing you know, you got a bunch of pop-ups and strikeouts, and you don't want that. Like, all those dudes know how to hit. They're elite hitters. They need to stick with their approach. Just a slight adjustment on aggressiveness, and that's it. So I don't want to get to, say something dumb and be like, yeah, they need to swing harder. Like, I don't mean that at all. I just mean the mindset when they get up there needs to be do damage. Like, Dean Curley, brother, you are strong and tall and leverage, and you know what I mean? It would not hurt you to fly out to left a time or two. Like, so
just do it. Well, I think that move I think that lineup tweak, I don't think it was like Tony's always talked about, and you can tell he tries to build that lineup with a lot of balance in mind, like to keep it kind of going for, you can put up those crooked numbers. I think some of those changes that he made on Tuesday were like, screw it, here's the best guys at the top, and when it cycles to them, let's try to score. Like, and if the guys at the bottom do some stuff, great. But you know what? Keelan, Fisher, you're getting more ABs than anybody else. Stacking Inslee behind you because he always puts together good ABs. There's there's your lineup. And he's just, I don't hate it, because right now you just have to get something going. And while I don't want to move guys around in the field, I never care about moving guys around in the lineup. I think when you're up there for an AB, you're up there for an AB. Like, I think if you're a player and you're hitting 8th or you're hitting 5th or you're hitting 2nd, you're going up there to hit the baseball. Like that, to me, that I think people who get bent out of shape about where they are in the lineup, that's BS. I don't buy that at all. Now, what I don't like is always moving guys around the field, because I think that can lead to struggles defensively and things in their head and all that. But like, I don't care where you hit. Like, I think we all like, and when I say that, I mean, it shouldn't matter to the player. Like for the team's success, for how you order them, yes, that's a very valid, important conversation. But if you're a player, dude, when you go up in the box, does the pitcher care whether you're 2 or 8? Like, are you not allowed to swing as hard because you're hitting 8th? Do you have to take more pitches because you're hitting 2nd? No, go hit the damn ball.
Leadoff, the only exception, is different.
I want my best guy hitting leadoff just so he gets the most ABs. But
Let's run through these last couple of topics so we can get to Berkey. Will, what were your thoughts on the lineup changes last night with Fisher hitting 2nd, Inslee 3rd, Fargo 4th, Curley 5th?
Yeah. Yes.
You like it?
Yeah.
What do you like about it?
Keelan and Fisher are your 2 highest in pro prospects. They need to carry the most weight in terms of responsibility to drive in runs and be on base and do damage. Give them the most ABs. Inslee at 3 is fine because he's been your best RBI guy. He's clutch. Put him in the 3 hole. That's fine. Bargo has been your most consistent power source lately, so put him at 4th. Dean is kind of your biggest wild card. Like the upside is massive, but he's been struggling. So 5th is a good spot there. Usually 5th is kind of a free swinger position, kind of that 4-hole protection. So maybe that was a chance to open up Dean. Be like, look, dude, you're in the 5-hole right in the middle. Go get it. And then, beyond that, I'm totally fine with it. The way it was kind of similar to how it has been. But yeah, I'm just totally good with it. I would stick with it.
I would too. Wes, your thoughts?
No, I mean, it's kind of like what I said earlier. I think they're bunching instead of focusing more on the length of the lineup, what he normally does. I think this was more of a move to be like, screw it. Here's some of the best guys right there together. And if that means that every 3rd inning could be a dud, all right, man, whatever. Now the risk with that is if someone mows down those top 3, then they feel like they can maybe not relax, but don't have to be perfect for a little bit. And maybe that is not great, but I mean, after that Auburn weekend, he's not going to move guys around the field too much now. He's already said that, and he's not going to do that. He's not changing off that. But he's never said, I'm going to stop tinkering with the lineup. And I just said a minute ago, I don't think that should bother players at all. Like if you're out there getting to bat, do you remember all 3 of us played the game, obviously at different levels, but like, do you remember how excited you got every time you went up to bat? Like every time you go to bat, you're like, man, I'm going to hit the crap out of this ball. I'm so excited right now. It's like why we play the game. Defense is fun, but like you'd love to go up there and hit. So if you're hitting 8th, if you're hitting 7th, 1st, 4th, who cares? Like it's fun. Go up there and hit. So yeah, I mean, I think he's trying to position them where he's bunching together the ability to stack together a big inning. And after the Auburn performance, I'm fine with that.
Well, and as Wes and I discussed after you hopped off on Monday, Will, I was pro change up the lineup. I didn't really have the exact answer. I just thought it needed a new look to give guys a refresh or a reset, whatever you want to call it. So I didn't really think that you could go wrong with simply just mixing it up, and that's what happened. Looking ahead to this weekend before we get out of here and get to Berkey, Vanderbilt, Tennessee, it's a rivalry series. It's one that Tennessee really needs to have in this week's field of 64 projections at d1baseball.com. Tennessee's projected 8th, which means you're
9.
9. That's right. I had it backwards. Vanderbilt's number 8. Tennessee's number 9. And obviously you want to be a top 8 national seed. That way that if you advance to super regionals, you get to host super regionals, and Omaha runs through, in this case, Lindsey Nelson Stadium. So very important in that regard. There's going to be a lot of emotions, a lot of energy. I think it's a weekend that's going to come down to which starting rotation performs better. I'd say Tennessee's on the surface has more stuff to it, as we like to say, but Vanderbilt staff is really, really talented. A much different look. I enjoyed listening to Berkey break it down, and I'll leave it at that. Not to give away all the goods here early on. But just your thoughts, Will. I want to talk about AJ Russell kind of after we share our thoughts on Vanderbilt and the key matchups this weekend. But before we talk about AJ Russell and Tennessee's pitching going into the weekend, just your overall thought on Vandy, kind of what to expect and what you think is going to be key for Tennessee this weekend.
Yeah, my first thought was right back to 2023. I was like, who did Tennessee play when that thing got turned around? It was these Vanderbilt Commodores, which was in our home ballpark. Got the Griffin Merritt walk-off homer after a Dylan Dreiling first and then Tears, or it may have been Tears and then Dreiling, both true freshmen at the time. Or no. Kavaris was redshirt freshman. Dylan was true freshman. And that was the turning point in the season. Like, pretty cut and dry. The players said it. You could see it. Tennessee got a huge, much-needed series win against Vanderbilt when they were scuffling. That happened at the beginning of SEC play. Now it comes at the end, which could be even better, because if you win this series and carry that momentum over, who knows what happens at Arkansas. Tennessee's hasn't won a series over there under Tony Vitello, but you take momentum from this weekend, who knows what happens. But anyways, J.D. Thompson, who we touched on Friday, another good point to think back to a year ago. Tennessee was going for the sweep on Sunday in Nashville, and who was it that threw an absolute gem and let Tennessee know about it, which was all fair. He threw his hiney off,
Yes, he did.
his rear end off, J.D. Thompson, and Tennessee did not like the way that he carried himself, and I'm sure Vanderbilt won't like the way that Liam Doyle carries himself. So I fully expect Friday to just be must-see television. And I hope Liam Doyle is better, because I pull for Tennessee. But get your popcorn ready, as Ben is alluding to with his emotions. And I believe that's a great Lane Kiffin quote. Get your popcorn ready. But the other thing about Vandy that's interesting is their Sunday guy. It was on Sports Animal this morning. They were talking about it as well. And he's kind of like AJ Kazi, but a little bit lower velocity. But you've got that low arm slot, and he's got some weird metrics on it. And he throws that big sweeping slider and then a yo-yo changeup to go off of it. And he's been phenomenal on Sunday.
He has a higher strikeout rate than Liam Doyle.
What's his name? I'm blanking.
Now that you say it, I am blanking. It's
Farrell. Yeah, something like that.
Colin Farrell, something like that. But he's like, Burke says he's like $150, $160. That might be a little bit exaggeration, but
he's bones. He's bones.
He is bones as it gets, and he has a higher strikeout rate than Liam Doyle.
Yeah, he's been great for them, and
and it's he has a higher strikeout rate, and he throws like 88.
Yeah, that's an advantage for Vanderbilt on Sunday, because he's been phenomenal. Or you could say he's due to get roughed up, whichever way you want to look at it. But I don't think I can say anything that Tennessee fans don't already know. I mean, this is the rivalry for baseball. It's number one on a lot of people's list who are around Tennessee or Tennessee baseball fans. They're number two on mine, close second to our good friends at Kentucky. But Vanderbilt, is always that rivalry. My last game against them was the Evan Russell 3-run homer against, late in that game, he hit 2 earlier against Jack Leiter. So he hit 3 in the game. And that was a really good outing for me as well. But last thing I'll say, they play a style of baseball to where if Tennessee's not sharp, they will make us pay. So Tennessee needs to play well. And whether that's better vibes based, like Wes would say, or being more technically sound, the thing they say over there a lot is dominate the average play. And that's what you want to see. Take care of the ones that are in front of you. If you make a spectacular play, that's icing on the cake. But get the outs that you should get, take the walks that you should take, and do damage on the pitches that you should do damage on, and just play ball, man. It seems very just forced for Tennessee to get into anything. Like they need to go out there and have fun and keep it as simple as possible and just compete like maniacs. That's the best way we can put it, to coin the Wes Rucker phrase from earlier. compete like maniacs, and whatever happens from there, I can live with. But I just want to see some fight on the baseball field, not with your mouths.
Yeah, I think this is one of the best rivalries that Tennessee has really in any sport, and I think it's great because this is one of the few times where Tennessee has a big in-state rival who's very, 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 very good, and that is what makes this fun, right? Like that's what it's so great because you have two excellent, excellent baseball programs that are run so different in so many ways. And at the end of the day, they're both very good baseball teams and programs, and that's what it's all comes down to, like between the lines, how you play. But like the way that they're managed, the personalities of the manager, like the things they do, the quirks they have, they are just polar opposites in so many ways. And they're both very good, and they both don't like each other. What more could you want in a rivalry? What more could you possibly want in state? Completely different personalities, both very good, both really don't like each other. How many more ingredients do you need? Like, that's why it's so fun. And of course, you don't want to see fights and stuff like that, but like the jawing, the chirping, like the celebrations, like that's what this should be. I think it's great. I think it's really cool for the state. I think it's cool that kids all over the state get to watch this. And some will be like, "Oh, I'm more of a Tennessee guy," and some will be like, "Oh, I'm more of a Vanderbilt guy." And this is what it's supposed to be about, man. Like, it's fun. Go out there and play. And if this is one of those weekends where if you're a Tennessee coach, Tennessee player, Tennessee fan, whoever you are, look, this is your final SEC home series of the season. It's Vanderbilt. So take all your frustrations, throw them in a bucket, and forget about them for about 3 days. And just go out there and compete like maniacs and have fun and see what happens. That's what, no matter what happens, go out there and compete, be on the same page, give everything you got, and then see where it is on Sunday. Like it's that time of year, man. Like, it's time to take complaints, criticisms, frustrations, and F them. They're gone for now. Just go compete.
On the AJ Russell front, sounds like he's really dealing with a blister heading into this weekend. Sounds a little more serious than the one Liam Doyle dealt with going into his Ole Miss start. And this was a blister that popped up in the third inning of this past weekend's series finale against Auburn, which is when Auburn hit 3 straight singles off of him to lead off the inning. We're recording this mid Wednesday afternoon, and he is scheduled to throw a bullpen today and kind of see where he is at with it. And again, it did sound a little bit more concerning than Liam's. Liam's apparently was just more like skin falling off, whereas I pitched in high school. I never dealt with a blister, so I am not an expert on pitching blisters. Will, I don't know if you can speak better to it than I can. I would assume that you can, but it sounds like AJ's is on the inside of his finger, which seems like it's more concerning when it's on the inside of the finger, because obviously the baseball is just continually just rubbing up against it. Now, I don't know how that would be different from Liam's. I guess maybe Liam's was in a different spot. I don't know where Liam's blister was located, but he did tell me that it was very painful to pitch with. So it was obviously somewhere where he could feel it. So I'm a little confused on how AJ's is a little more concerning in that regard. But I don't anticipate a change being made Sunday, but just the fact that he's ruling or dealing with a blister, and they were kind of waiting to see how the bullpen goes. I suppose I can't rule it out either. So that is a storyline to follow going into the weekend. Potentially is AJ's availability with the bullpen, how available he is, and how much it impacts him. Because obviously there's already a lot of questions surrounding Tennessee's pitching staff, especially the back end of it on Sunday. And they need AJ Russell. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, the worst one is for me is if you had like a hangnail and then all the pressure of gripping the ball just digs into it, and if it starts bleeding, that's not really a blister, but it's annoying as can be. But yeah, the thing about blisters is they stink until they callus up, So you just try to do everything you can to get it, calloused and hardened so that you're fine. But it just depends on where it is and how, how annoying it is for AJ. Maybe it is in a different spot from Liam's, or maybe Liam's wasn't, quite as bad, or was done throwing as soon as it kind of flared up on him. But they're just annoyances. So, he's probably in there getting some sort of treatment on it, new skin or whatever they're doing every day.
That's what I would think.
And typically your Sunday starter would throw their bullpen on Thursday, or even Friday for some guys. So if AJ's throwing it a day earlier on Wednesday, maybe it's, hey, throw your bullpen and, give the thing an extra day to kind of heal up or harden up if it's going to callus. And that may be a strategic play there. Or maybe he's been throwing them earlier. I don't know. I haven't been over there for practice on Wednesdays. So we'll see. It can be annoying, but, I would imagine worst case, if he has to shorten his outing this week or miss this week, it wouldn't be an issue for next week.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would guess Will's on the money. You're covering it with new skin, because the thing that sucks is you can't numb it, because like then you can't feel the ball. So you
definitely can't numb it.
So you can't like for a lot of other injuries for other players, you might just numb it a little bit and then deal with it and it's fine. But pitchers, you just can't. And so yeah, and I would think also AJ throws that kind of turbo sinker. He's got that sinking fastball. So depending on what finger it is, that's a lot of grip on the ball to get that sinking action. Like
he's probably on the lace too.
Yeah, you're probably like digging into the lace really hard, because that's if you want, like, the people who throw good sinkers will tell you, like, it's a lot of it's in the thumb, right? Like that pressure on that bottom seam, and then ripping it. And so yeah, like that takes one of your effective turbo sinker and it makes it a little less turbo-ish. So I mean, it sucks, and if it's one of those deals where he can't do much this week, but you just got to move it on, it's the last thing he wants. It's the last thing Tennessee wants. But I mean, it's just kind of, listen, man, it's kind of the season it's been for him. It's just kind of one thing after the next, and that's baseball. That's life. Sucks. But if it's not him, and Coons, Krenzel, and I'm not opposed to Sharman for a little bit. I know Sharman's going to throw strikes. I know he's going to throw strikes. And there are times where I have value in that. Like, throw strikes, let the defense make plays, let the defense get in rhythm, see what happens. I mean, I'm not saying that I would love doing that, but I wouldn't mind it, because I know he's not going to throw the ball to the backstop. I know he's not going to walk 5 guys.
On the way out the door, picks the click. Heflin, you start first. Or Wes, if you have one. Will may need a minute.
I will go with
I'll say I'm going with Nate Snead, because I know who I am going with, and that's Nate Snead. I just think that his stuff is too good for him to struggle for this long. And like I said earlier, in order for Tennessee to reach its full potential, in order for the pitching staff to step up, Nate Snead has to be a big reason why. And I think that he's got some of that alpha mentality, some of that dog in him that this team needs. It was, I don't know that he had it when he first showed up to Tennessee, but he has grown a lot mentally during his time at Tennessee, and I think he is mentally tough enough to break out of this at some point. And what better weekend than against your in-state rival at home? So I feel good. Look, my pick to click going into LSU was Marcus Phillips, after Phillips had a couple of rough outings prior to saving the day temporarily in Baton Rouge. So I hit the nail on the head with Phillips. So maybe I'm going back to the kind of the same well of pitching and rolling with Nate Snead this weekend.
I'll go. My initial reaction was to say Marcus Phillips will throw just an absolute gem on Saturday. And I still think that's possible, but his ERA is like 2.6 or whatever. So I can't really say, hey, he's going to be good. Like he's
already clicking.
The numbers are what they are. I'm going to go Levi Clark. I think Levi Clark is going to hit an absolute bomb at some point this weekend. Wouldn't even shock me if he hit 2 over the 3-game series, if they'll play him. and keep him in there and roll with him at DH. I think that kid he's too good. He's one of the most like impressive freshman hitters that I've seen when he's on. And I think he's going to hit just at least one, if not two bombs this weekend.
I'm going to go with Inslee, and I know he's been good all year, but I think Inslee has a big weekend with a couple big swings because he is from over there in that part of the state.
Yep.
And he certainly doesn't like Vanderbilt any more than the three of us or anybody else over there does. And I think Inslee has a big weekend from the 3-hole and probably makes a nice catch out there in center field, which is never a hot take.
Time to run for it's another wall running time. He hasn't run 100 miles an hour into the wall in at least like a month now. So it's time for that.
My pitching pick to click would have been Franklin because he is a Jeff County guy. And I just feel like Vanderbilt doesn't sit right with him being Jeff County boy.
Makes sense.
Hunter Inslee certainly does not like Vanderbilt. I can assure you of that. Now Inslee's more West Tennessee than
yeah, but Vanderbilt's closer to his hometown than Knoxville.
For sure. No doubt about that.
Nashville is.
And he doesn't like Vanderbilt either, especially because he's been in he was probably somehow on the team that you were on that and was in the dugout for Evan Russell's 3 home runs against Jack Leiter some way, somehow.
Inslee is the last remaining former teammate of mine currently on the roster, yes.
Does that make you feel old?
It does.
Yes. Well, wait until you're turning 30 this year, and all the players that you're discussing are a decade younger than you.
Wait until you have a knee or an ankle that tells you it's about to rain.
Well, what Wes is trying to say is avoid having a stroke.
Well, no, but just like being old. Like you just wake up and you're like, what is it today? Oh, it's the ankle today. The ankle sucks. Or you wake up one day, you're like, why does my elbow hurt? What did I do? What is this? Yeah, that's about what 40 is when you start waking up and you're like, did I do something to this finger? Well, why is this finger stuck when I woke up today?
Maybe my sleep score will tell me. No free promos, but I just got an Oura Ring this week and it is sick.
Nice.
Okay. I'm super pumped about these. I could never wear the Whoop to sleep, but I've always been a rubber wedding ring guy. And so this Oura Ring is kind of just serving as like, hey, I have an actual ring. And so it's sick. No free promos though.
I'm a rubber ring guy most of the time.
Yeah.
There are so many jokes. There were 3 jokes that I just had in my head right now, ready to roll them off in consecutive order. And I decided, I don't know if I want to edit that out. So I'll just not do it.
I'm very proud of you for biting your tongue for once in your life. So just know that you get a gold sticker on this end. Who gets 5 gold stickers is the great Chris Burke, who never disappoints. And we are going to get to Chris Burke to round out today's podcast on the other side of this quick timeout here on the Diamond Vols podcast on GoVols247.com. Welcome back into the Diamond Vols podcast on GoVols247.com. I am Ben McKee, and on this segment of the podcast, I am joined by former Tennessee baseball player, former Houston Astro, major leaguer, current SEC Network, ESPN, College World Series broadcaster. His resume deserves its own segment at this point, and we'll get to Berkey here in just a moment. But I do need to encourage you, wherever you find your Go Vols 24/7 podcast, if you wouldn't mind going in to that stream and leaving us a review, we would greatly appreciate that. And of course, as we always like to add, if there's a Tennessee baseball fan in your life who is craving more Tennessee baseball content and they haven't quite found us yet, if you wouldn't mind sending us their way, we would greatly appreciate that as well. Berkey, how are you, my friend?
Good, brother. Good to hear from you.
Good to hear from you, as always. Always love hearing you on the broadcast, so it's always good to catch up with you somewhat in person or over the interwebs. Where have you been lately as SEC play has really picked up here in the second half, and we get ready to head down to Hoover in a couple of weekends?
Yeah, well, I haven't been in Knoxville enough, but I've been everywhere else. I was in Austin for that A&M Texas series. That was pretty cool. Headed back down to Austin tomorrow for Texas and Florida. And then actually flying to Tuscaloosa for Game 3 of Bama and Georgia. So I've seen most of the league. Haven't had LSU in person, which stinks, but I've watched a ton of their games. But other than that, I've seen just about everybody else. Oklahoma, I'm thinking like the top, 14 teams. I think I've seen just about everybody else. So yeah, just bouncing around, like usual. I actually had a couple weeks in the ACC. Of course, most of those games got canceled, but did a little bit of that this year too.
I imagine you were able to pick up on some of the Clemson and Florida State games, if I had to guess, considering they seem to be the top teams in that league at the moment.
Well, I was actually down at Florida State for the Wake Forest series, or excuse me,
Okay.
the Virginia series, and that's when the school shooting happened. So the whole series got canceled. And then I was at North Carolina for North Carolina Wake Forest. So I've seen, or I was, supposed to see 4 of the top 10 teams of the ACC, but unfortunately that Florida State series got ended by a tragedy. But yeah, the ACC is, man, it is pretty wide open. Heck, Miami was dead in the water a month ago, and now they might win the league.
Yeah.
The SEC, I would say, is you're more sure, I think, about the top of the league than maybe you are in the ACC, but still wide open from the standpoint of, I feel like you could make a pretty good case for 10 or 11 teams catching fire and potentially getting to Omaha. Like, it's that deep.
Before we dive into Tennessee and get your thoughts on a couple of different Tennessee topics, which team in the SEC do you trust the most to make it the furthest? Because there's a hodgepodge, like you mentioned. Texas obviously has the best record and maybe the best resume, but they've been dealing with some injuries that have now popped up, and they just seem to continue to pile on injury-wise. And there's so many other teams that are at the top, and other teams that are starting to play some of their best baseball. Who do you trust the most at the top of the SEC right now?
I trust Arkansas the most. I think Arkansas has some home field hurdles to jump over. Like, it's been kind of eerie there the last 4 or 5 years. Like, they've just lost in their own building. I think 21, 23, 24. So, but this year's team, I just think, is way more well-rounded. Those teams were all so pitching and defense heavy that every opponent was in the game against them, and they had great conference records, but they weren't overly impressive. Similar to this Texas team, like you worry about teams that are short on offense because you just know that the opponent's always a swing of the bat away from pulling off an upset, whereas I feel like this Arkansas team, it has all the pitching that it needs, including some nice bullpen pieces now that Gabe Gackle's back rolling. Aiden Jimenez has been really good for them too, but their offense is, to me, the most complete offense, the scariest offense in the country. So Arkansas first, and then, I think you could debate 4 or 5 teams after that. And then, like I said, there's another 4 or 5 teams after that. Oklahoma is a perfect example that, like, the pitching and the style of play is good enough that, it's so funny. We say it every year at Squeeze Play, like, you only have to win 5 games. You have to win 5 games, right? And 3 of those games are definitely against non-SEC teams in your regional, right? You're not going to be in an SEC regional. So then you might get paired up with another SEC team, but that's just a conference weekend, right? Which these teams do every weekend. So it feels like when you really look at a lot of these teams' rosters, Ole Miss, there's more teams than just the top 6 or 7 that wouldn't, they just wouldn't shock me if they ended up there. Heck, Florida, they've won 10 out of their last 12. You can't fake that. You win 10 out of 12 in this league, you got a pretty good team. So A&M, I still think A&M could end up in Omaha, and A&M's got 10 conference wins as we speak. So that part, in a way, makes me wonder if this year ends up being the record-breaking year for SEC teams in Omaha. Like, I could easily see that.
And that would be pretty cool if SEC baseball was able to set the record right after SEC basketball was also able to set the record. That'd be a pretty cool achievement for Greg Sankey and the rest of the conference.
Oh, they're going to set the record for bids.
Yes.
Question is, will they beat the record of 4 in Omaha? I'm pretty sure that's the record. Last year was 4 SEC, 4 ACC. Right. So that'll be interesting to see too.
It will be. In regards to Tennessee, the awkward conversation these days around these parts, I know you've been all over the place, but are obviously always checking in on your alma mater. There's a number of different ways we could go with this, so I'm just going to give you the floor. And what is kind of your thought on Tennessee baseball right now with 2 weekends to play in the regular season?
So you want glass half full or glass half empty?
Both.
Okay, which one first?
I'm an optimist, so give me the glass half full.
Glass half full. There's no way they're going to hit worse than they've been hitting. And I'm a big law of averages guy. So I truly believe, people say, well, which is it? Is their offense the team from the first 20 games or the team from the last 20 games? Like, probably neither. Obviously, the competition in the first 20 games was different than the competition in the last 20 games. But they're definitely not as bad as they've been. And so I experience this all the time as a player. In a weird way, I would have confidence in my slumps, because I just knew they weren't going to last forever. Like, just hang in there. Like, things are going to turn. And so again, glass half full, like, if you were going to pick a time for your offense to kind of bottom out, it would be late April, early May, because then you get firing in May and June. Like, again, there's too many good players on that team for their offense to have been as anemic as it's been most of the last month. They've had some games that have just been real stinkers. Now, I will say, there are more aces in the league this year than in years past. But I do think Tennessee's offense is going to make a significant run over the next month and play a much better, a much more typical Tennessee brand of ball. So I would, and then along those lines too, like, Nate Snead has a pretty good track record. I think he's never been a big strikeout guy, but he's got a pretty good track record. And him struggling is not in the Tennessee playbook for having their best team. So I also would, again, glass half full version. He gets going. AJ Russell continues to climb, and Krenzel and Coons and Lloyd's been good all year long, and Franklin, and you go, hey, we got arguably the best pitcher in the country. Marcus Phillips has been mostly really, really good. You really only need 4 bullpen pieces. The best version of Tennessee's 3 starters are, I would say, more talented than anybody else's 3 starters. Maybe not as consistent. So anyway, that would be the glass half full. The glass half empty is the infield defense is what it is, and that's been a problem. And the bullpen doesn't have any swing and miss in it, and the offense isn't hitting the ball at the ballpark. Like, there's your glass half empty. And some people would say, well, look, this has been a month worth of league games. Why do I think that's going to change? I tend to live in the glass half full world myself. I believe in the players on that roster. I clearly believe in the coaching staff. And like I said, I'm a law of averages guy. I really think it'll get going better. I also think this team's played some of their best ball on the road. So if they got to go on the road in the postseason, they got to go on the road in the postseason. They'll be all right.
What would be your message to Dean Curley if you were in Knoxville and you bumped into him during pregame BP, or were able to go get a coffee, grab lunch, talk over the phone? What would be your message to Dean Curley, who, he's still projected as a late first round pick, but has clearly gone through it in the field the last several weeks, and the at bats aren't consistent at the moment either. What would be your message to him?
I would first hear from him. I'd first just kind of settle in and hear how he's doing. And then just encourage him too. Like, the game's really hard. I give you a little insight into the world of making a living playing this game. Yesterday was the anniversary of Kerry Wood striking out 20 Astros. And I don't know if I was a senior in high school or freshman in college when that happened. Maybe I think I was still in high school. But anyway, Bagwell, Biggio were on that team. So I sent Bagwell the clip. And we used to have a thing. Okay, this is how crazy pros are. The game is so hard and you get humbled so much and the pitching is so good that we used to rate our strikeout looking. So like if you struck out looking and you just, hey man, like I got caught guessing or that pitch just totally locked me up. You just walk, like if it was strike three, you'd start taking off your helmet and batting gloves before the umpire called strike three. Or if it was the third out. If it was, not the third out, you'd go ahead and start walking out of the batter's box like before the umpire even, like you're not blaming the umpire. You're not going to act like you're upset. He wins. Well, Bagwell in that game, his second strikeout, he gets buckled on a Kerry Wood hook. And I promise you, he's like across the plate before the umpire even goes into his motion. It's so classic. So I sent him a text. I was like, bro, your second K in this highlight package is so pro. And he sends me a text back. We're laughing about it. And I say that story just to say, like, the guys who have played the game the longest, when they sit around and tell war stories, it's almost always about the worst parts of their career. Like, and because there's oftentimes a badge of honor of like, man, this is how bad it was, and I still made it. Like look what I got through. You know what I mean? Look what I survived, so to speak, right? And so I would just tell Dean, like, hey man, don't be embarrassed by the struggles of the game. Everybody's been on an island. When I went to, I played. I was fortunate. You're really not supposed to play in two futures games, but I did. And anyway, my first futures game, they had me bouncing back between short and second in the Astros minor leagues. And I had kind of had the thing. Like I wasn't real sure where I wanted to throw the ball from. And I'm playing in front of a packed house at Chicago White Sox Stadium. The game's on ESPN. And I was out there like, I hope they don't hit me the ball. Like, I'm not sure where I'm going to throw it if somebody hits me the ball. So, again, all that to say, there's not a person that's ever played this game at a high level that can't empathize with the depths of how hard the game is. So don't run from that. Don't be embarrassed by it. Like, dig in, right? And if you want to play this game for a long time, this won't be the last time you feel lost or like you've let your team down, all that stuff. Like the question so much isn't if that's happening. The question is, how are you going to handle it? And are you willing to fight through that and bounce back from it? So that would be my message to him. Again, I'd listen for a while, but when he gave me the floor, I would just tell him like, hey, bro, I promise you this will pass, but only if you find the kind of fortitude to just really embrace it and don't act like it's not there. It is. Everybody sees it. And that's okay. That's okay. You'll actually look back on this period and be like, man, look what I survived.
In terms of looking at this weekend series between Tennessee and Vanderbilt, the thing that jumps off the page to me is Liam Doyle versus J.D. Thompson and how electric of a matchup that is going to be on Friday night. What do Tennessee fans who have not paid attention to Vanderbilt this season need to know about their in-state rival?
Their starting pitching is Thompson's not quite as good as Doyle, but he's pretty good. And it's a similar offering with just not as quite as much velo. So it's that high ride fastball. He's going to try to get Tennessee to chase up in the zone. So similar to Doyle, just it's more 92, 94, not 96, 98. Number two, Cody Bowker is his numbers aren't quite as good as Thompson and Fennell, but it's good stuff. It's 3-row pitches. Like he's had plenty of outings where he's been highly effective. And then this Connor Fennell kid on Sunday, it's the most unique arm in the conference. He's 6'1", 6'2", 150 pounds, and his strikeout rate's higher than Liam Doyle's, and he throws 88. So I'm gonna let you wrap your brain around that. But it's a crazy upshoot fastball with probably the best changeup in the league. So it's 3 real starters. Their bullpen is unlike Vanderbilt bullpens in the past. It's not this extreme velocity. It's actually more breaking ball guys. So like Sawyer Hawks is their bullpen dude, and he's throwing 93, 94, but it's less than 50% fastballs. A lot of breaking balls. Luke Guth is kind of the same way. Miller Green's their lefty. He's less than 50% fastballs too. So it's a typical Vanderbilt bullpen in that it's talented, but it's not as much velocity as some of the Vanderbilt bullpens in the past. And then offensively, Vanderbilt, it's been a really rough go for them on the road. They're not overly offensive. I think they're second to last in the conference in home runs. I think only Kentucky has hit fewer home runs, I think. But they've actually hit, like percentage-wise, they've hit more in conference play than they have overall. And if you're looking for a guy to kind of watch out for, Riley Nelson, their first baseman, I think he's third in the SEC in league games and hitting. He's a very polished hitter. If you got some Reds fans on the podcast, think Sean Casey reminds me of not overly home run happy first baseman, but a very high hit tool. And then Braden Holcomb, who's DH, plays some right field. He looks like a SEC tight end, and he's finally kind of found his stride. He's hitting like 340 in conference play. He hit 2 home runs against Alabama, including the walk-off. So, and Brody Johnston, their third baseman, is one of the short list most talented freshmen in the league. So that would be a little bit of the scout report of their offense. But I think if Tennessee's offense gets going, they got a good chance to win the series. But I'd be surprised if the games are super high scoring. I think first 1 to 5 runs probably wins each day, if I'm guessing.
Do you consider Vanderbilt a bad matchup for Tennessee, a good matchup? And this is my last one for you, tying it into kind of your glass half full approach to the state of Tennessee baseball. You think that this offense is going to get going at some point? It seems like that's going to be really key for Tennessee this weekend. In your mind, what needs to happen for Tennessee's offense to get going more consistently?
I think the matchup, it's hard to say any of these matchups in the SEC are good matchups. I would say with Tennessee's offense wobbling a little bit, it probably helpful to have an offense that's not one of the higher level offenses in the league coming to your building. I think yesterday's game, we're recording this on a Wednesday morning. Yesterday's game was probably very helpful for Tennessee. Now, some people say, what it's a midweek matter. Well, here's what I will tell you. I think Gavin Keelan's one of the best hitters in the country. When a great hitter has a 3-for-4 game, like, watch out. Like that, it's like Steph Curry making his first 30-footer. Like as soon as that first one goes in, the naivety of a high level athlete is they always think they're dangerous, and then as soon as they prove to themselves they can go on a run. So a kid like Gavin Keelan, like he's not really ever like fallen off, but he hasn't been nearly as hot post coming back as he was the first 2 months of the season, 6 weeks, whatever it was. So I think him catching fire. The truth is, Inslee and Fisher have been very consistent, right? So what needs to happen? Reese Chapman needs to get going. Dean Curley needs to get going. And if you get Keelan playing at his ceiling, which something tells me he's about to get back to, and then Inslee and Fisher keep doing their thing, and you get Chapman and Curley going again, I think you'll be fine. Because the other truth is Peoples has actually been very good in conference play. I mean, I'm not trying to sound condescending, but relative to what anybody would expect out of the 7, 8, 9 hole, like that his hits have counted. He's really the bottom's been okay. I know they've had a little bit of a revolving door, but let's be honest, like you need your stars to play like stars. So Keelan, Chapman, Curley have to get going. The ball has to get out of the ballpark. And if that coincides with Inslee and Fisher and Bargo, Inslee, Fisher, and Bargo, like I guarantee if you had Tony Vitello off to the side, say, hey man, how do you feel like Inslee, Fisher, and Bargo have done? He'd be like, there's no way I could ask for more from those three guys. Right. And so a healthy Keelan that's back feeling like he's one of the best players in the country, which I think he is. And then you get Curley and Chapman going. Again, I think Tennessee's set up for a good finish. They just got to see it go through the hoop, so to speak. And I think what better place to do it than at home against your rival? That would be my glass half full message for the Volunteer fan base.
Hey, we are pro glass half full, especially after the podcast we had to record Monday morning following the debacle that was the Auburn series with all the weather delay and funky storylines and that one. Chris, it was good to see you a couple weeks ago, I guess earlier in the season, bump into you at Lindsey Nelson. What'd you think of all the new renovations? I know it's not totally done, but had to, and I'm sure you were probably in Knoxville at some point before I bumped into you, but what'd you think walking in? And I know there's a lot of construction still going on, but seeing the future of Lindsey Nelson.
Man, I tell you, I stood out there on the field and looked up, and I can't believe what a stadium it's becoming. You know, I can't wait to see the finished product. Next year's 25-year anniversary of the 2001 team. So I'm hopeful that we can come back and see the kind of the grand finale of the stadium being completely finished. And I would just tell the Tennessee fans out there, take a deep breath. Most of you all are Atlanta Braves fans. You know it's a long season. The beauty of college baseball is it's a much more urgent stretch of 30 games as opposed to 162 games. But I really would encourage them to hang in there with his team. Remember the run from 23. The talent on this roster is plenty good enough to get to Omaha. So just hang in there. And enjoy the ride, because something tells me this team's best ball is in front of them.
Absolutely. Burke, greatly appreciate you. I respect your baseball voice as much as anybody's out there. So I always love getting you on and getting your insight on the team, and already looking forward to seeing you down in Hoover in a couple of weeks, but checking you and Runes out on Squeeze Play. That'll be here before you know it. Hopefully,
I've got the
back on Squeeze Play this year?
Oh, my bad. I got the Tennessee Arkansas series, so I don't know if you'll be there, but
I will not.
I'll at least I'll get the call. I've called all three of those games, so excited about that. And then I'll see you in Hoover.
Yeah, tough turnaround going from Arkansas to Hoover with a 3-year-old and a 14-month-old at home. So
yeah,
don't want the wife putting me on the couch. So I'm sitting the Arkansas series out that weekend. But always appreciate you, Burke.
All right, man. Great being with you, brother.
Absolutely. For Wes Rucker and Will Heflin in the first segment of the podcast, and for Chris Burke in the second segment of the podcast, I'm Ben McKee. This has been another edition of the Diamond Vols Podcast on GoVols247.com.